Dang it, I forgot my hat. That is not a good thing, because there's a lot of sun out here. Oh well, it'll be all right. What was I just thinking about? My mind just races. I was thinking about monolithic domes again. Monolithic domes are, it's a company in, I think it's Paris, Texas, if I recall correctly, somewhere like that. And what they do is they sell you a big form, a big blow-upable, inflatable form that then you can make a rebar lattice work. Actually, I forget which is where, but you make a rebar lattice work on it, and then you spray foam in the outside. No, that can't be right. You spray concrete on one side and foam on the other, or maybe they're both inside. No, they're both inside. And so, maybe, yeah, I forget. The point is, though, is that they're super insulated and super strong because you use spray concrete, shotcrete, to cover the dome. And then you have it like eggshell type structure that's really powerful and is good in all kinds of natural disasters. You know, hurricane proof, everything proof pretty much. It would be tempting to get a team of folks trained on how to do that, and then maybe even look up how to make more locally the shells, the inflatable part. Maybe look up companies that make sails or something. I don't know if there's any of those around here, but maybe down on the coast somewhere. And or you could buy it from them, whatever. Also, I saw a guy who bought a steel Quonset hut, and he buried that, and I think he sprayed that in concrete as well. So the idea of spraying concrete, it's a little weird. It's not how things are done around here, but it would use less material. I even have a book about how to spray a concrete fence, and you use a mold, you use a plywood or something, and then you just spray the fence onto it. And we could look at the costs on that, differences and how strong it is or not. You can make it wavy to have more structuralness. You see, if you look up like curvy brick walls, there's places in Europe where they make curved brick walls, and those theoretically use less bricks because they can be thinner. They have extra strength because they're curvy. And it also creates pleasant microclimates in there, which I really like the idea of. Of course, if we're going to build a wall, usually it should be part of a building anyway. Not always. But I like the idea of well, it depends on what the wall's for. But like animal walls, you may not want to have animals right next to your building. On the other hand, why not? You know, you just have that side of your building be like the north side, for example, is shaded, and the animals need shade anyway. So anyway, it depends. I guess, you know, I could just make a list of every possible architectural style that exists and then experiment with them. The one cool thing I like about the monolithic domes is that you can fully bury them. And I think that would be very valuable because it is stormy sometimes. And as you look at floods and things that happen around the world, people are suddenly surprised. And they shouldn't be. You know, like even if it's 1,000-year rain, you know, it only comes every 1,000 years. Well, you don't want your whole fucking town to get squished because of that. So build stuff for the long haul. Really long. And even here, the ravines that exist, they existed because there was more water. There's less water right now because people have channeled it off and are using it. But what would happen if there was less people doing that? What would happen if there was water flowing through those ravines again? Well, what we could do now is fill parts of the ravines, which would slow the flow of water. We can have great agricultural areas in there right now. And then also on the sides of them, dig other routes where a huge amount of water would go to and into, make like a new ravine. That's a crazy sounding idea, but we want to make tunnel-like things anyway, right? And we want to have places under the earth. And so it would be a fail-safe for a sudden huge rain that would become a flood. Because right now, the way things are designed right here, there's no risk of flood. There is a risk that the road of the ravine I just crossed could wash out. In fact, with a big enough rain, it will wash out. I'm going to fill that one up with dirt. I'm going to fill all the way up. But then what happens when I get such a big rain? And I could have big tubes that I could siphon the water out of somewhere and dump it somewhere else. But I would almost rather dig side ravines that allow that water to go away and down and pool up there and potentially flood off of that spot. But we would know where that water was going to go. Because up in the towns uphill, they've blocked the ravines and they've channeled the water off in other directions, which are not always directions you want them to go, because they can wash roads out and trees get knocked over and you can't drive down the road anymore. So this idea of planning for things in the far future that we think are ridiculous, earthquakes would be a good example. There's going to be a big earthquake. Now, I don't live in the biggest earthquake zone in the world, but that is one of the things that occurs here. And I've felt earthquakes here over the last 20 years. They're no big deal. I'm used to it. I come from a very earthquake-prone location. But that means we might want to invest in building buildings that are way stronger than we need to, because it really sucks if all your buildings fall down. And this just gets into another weird topic of survivalism type thinking, is you do have to make a plan for your neighbors as well. It's terrible because they should make their own plans. What we can really do is support people in practicing food forest farming at a massive scale, so we're surrounded by food. That would do wonders for the economy now and later, but especially later when the other systems fail. And as far as earthquake preparedness, well, I can't do a hell of a lot with that, because I can't tell people, invest 3 times more in building your building to make it too strong, and they're just not going to go for that, But I could have, even with the monolithic dome idea, they have what's called echo shells, and you can reuse the form, and you can make small concrete structures, kind of like ferro cement, basically. It's just you happen to be spraying the concrete, not doing it by hand. And so we could create a heck of a lot. What's the name of this mushroom? Rusilla hermetica? Is that right? It has gills, though. It's a something hermetica, I think. I forget. I don't think it's edible. I don't know. I used to be really into mushrooms and I study them a lot, but now it's mostly I only care about the ones that are the most common that I would care about. Maybe eat them or something. But I just looked up prefabricated buildings. Those are another tempting idea, because they go up quicker. It makes sense to not do everything here, but I don't know. Can we buy them and then put them together ourselves? Because I don't know if I want to bring a team in. I want to be able to build a town in private, really. But the thing I like about the monolithic domes and burying them is you could have a lot of square meterage, and have it be completely invisible. Now, one problem is that it's going to be dark in there. We could paint them white. If we had a non-toxic, highly reflective white paint, that would be ideal. Really, that'd be great. And then we don't have a lot of, well, there's no radiation hitting it, so that's pretty cool. And then we light them with LEDs, right? Nice warm light LEDs. Well, LEDs might not always be available in the future, so we also have to plan for candles, which means we need to plant plants that we can make candles with. That'd be pretty stellar. I spent the morning today out at a site where we still have pine beetle plague happening, and it's happening on some trees that I can't get to. I can't get a truck there, and that's a big problem. We might just have to give up in that area, which is not a huge problem. I mean, the truth is I don't need trees right there anyway. Not having trees there would allow a bunch of sunlight into a small ravine that would be great for gardening. And I keep thinking about where I'm going to need to bulldoze roads. But that's one of the hardest decisions to make. I'm getting closer though. I'm getting, some decisions are pretty much made. And God damn it. This is where I fell last time, because it's so slippery and it's still pretty early in the morning. So this hard packed mud is actually way slipperier than it looks. Now I'm taking different routes to go down here, because last time I fell was over a month ago, and I fell on my spine on a rock. It hit it directly, and that still hurts a month later. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine online about the risks of living the way I do, and it's just risky as hell to be alone. It's not safe to live alone, you know, and it's not evil people with guns that are going to come get me. That could happen too, but it's very unlikely. What's more likely is that I'm constantly walking on dangerous trails. It's like going hiking forever. I've been hiking for 20 years. Big surprise that occasionally I've had problems. Like I sprained my ankle right over there. Of course, I was really drunk at that time, but that was the real cause. Also, it was dark and I didn't have a good light, and so, you know, I just fell, ended up in some barbed wire, ripping up near my eye. I didn't get my eye, but I ripped up there, and then I sprained my ankle, and I passed out, because I probably hit my head too. I don't even know. And luckily I had a girlfriend at the time, and she came back looking for me, and I had also yelled for help, and I was close enough to this little town over here that one of my friends came out, and so the two of them, we assessed me and decided I was only moderately injured and very stupid. And then we what am I doing today? Yeah, I just want to go to town, so I walk. Yeah, I might as well walk to the further part of town too. Cool. Just got a note from a guy I knew back in '95. Right around there. Okay, we'll close this shit. Nothing interesting good. So I've been, this is rambly as fuck. I don't apologize. I don't care. It's your problem. You're watching it. I was thinking a bit about Oroville, which is one of the largest intentional community type things in the world. And I need to study it. It was started by Mama whatever, and where am I going? Fuck. The same damn thing I did yesterday. And it has a supposedly spiritual nature to it, although I don't know specifically what that means. And I guess I'm annoyed enough with spiritual people and the control freaks that they usually are, or idiots, one of the two. Maybe there's some other categories of problem spiritual people. But, you know, you just look at all the spiritual teachers that use their spirituality to manipulate people sexually. I hate that shit. I think it's dumb. Or to lie. I had an ex-girlfriend that used her spirituality to lie. That was annoying. And I grew up very spiritual, so I avoid that shit. And really, almost everywhere has a spiritual bent to it. And so I wonder if there would actually be a market, in a sense. A lot of people who would like to avoid that, people like me, who don't want to stand in a circle holding hands with people I don't know, listening to somebody spout off pablum crap to pump up their ego. I don't got time for that shit. I've only done that once in my life, the permaculture thing. Nice people and everything, and it's nice to feel all together and shit, but it's nice to actually be together, to actually have common goals and things like that. Common values that are really clearly stated. Oh, that was another thing I was going to bring up. There's this kind of thing online, I think it was on Reddit, but it's elsewhere now too. Am I the asshole? Usually abbreviated A-I-T-A-H. Am I the asshole? And people ask questions about whether they are an asshole for doing a particular thing, because they feel conflicted about it, or they want validation that they're not the asshole, or perhaps they're even self-reporting that they were. But I think that's a very interesting topic, and it's a very searchable term, right? It's a very unique acronym that always gets used. And it would be great to actually have an ontology, an index of every single question that could possibly exist or has existed of that, because all of those are morality questions, they're ethical questions. And some of them have very clear answers. Others would be food for thought, and people might disagree. So we should categorize those and say, well, here's a bunch of ways you can be an asshole. Don't do those things. Commit to not doing those things. If you want people to trust you, sign social contracts that indicate you will not be the asshole. And then look at other cases where you're not the asshole. You're protecting yourself. And of course, one of the problems is that people pose a question with only partial information, right? Like, my boyfriend or girlfriend did this thing, and then I did that thing, or am I the asshole? Well, we don't know the full context of that, and you can't trust a person who's writing about that, but that's okay. We can expand on the question, and we can look at any other circumstances that may have affected whether or not a person is the asshole. Now, some of the more interesting questions would be the ones people disagree about. And those are all food for thought and discussion, and also would require us to add context and say, well, this is the fuller situation, or this is what we could postulate, or if it's this way, then this, we might think this. That would be very useful in coming up with how we can live together without having any assholes, because we either retrain them, kill them, or develop a culture in which they never develop those asshole behaviors. We can prevent it in the first place with better training. Raise people right, not to be assholes. Because there certainly are a billion ways to be assholes. Goddamn dogs pooing the trail. Which dog did that? Fucker. Because I think back on my life, and I actually do have some regrets. And what's interesting is we always think we're the good person, right? Because we know that we've been victimized by other people, and I have been. But we don't always see the impact that we have on others. And it's unclear whether we should have to care. One guy just got in big trouble. I think he's a firefighter or something. And he dressed up as Osama bin Laden as a costume, right? Well, I can understand that's sensitive for some people, but that was like over 20 years ago, I believe now. And the attack on the Twin Towers. And, whatever. I mean, if people are are too sensitive, fuck them. I don't want to be around those people. That they have a personal problem that they expect others to adjust to. So I'm not a big fan of that, really. I mean, what if somebody went as like a flaming gay caricature and they weren't gay, right? If they were gay, of course, no one would care because they're in that group. But what if somebody did it and, you know, like, I don't think that matters either. It's a stereotype. It exists. In fact, one of the weird things I've noticed is that there's been this movement to get people of color, which is a terrible term. It just means anybody but the white people you don't like. Although now they don't like Asians either, because Asians are too successful to be included. So now they use BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, focusing on not including the Asians, as far as I can tell. That's ridiculous, of course. That's my point. Yeah, anyway, basically almost any costume can't offend me. I mean, I can't even think of one that would. I ain't give a fuck if people wear clothes. Now, given a particular culture, you should probably wear clothes in most of them, of some kind. But you know, what if I do dress up to make fun of someone? I mean, there was a guy, it was a video I saw, it was a nice YouTube video, who was wearing a Mexican sombrero and a fake mustache, you know, and had a kind of a colored blanket poncho thing that actually I've never seen anyone wear that way, whatever. And so he asked a bunch of politically correct college student assholes and other people if that was offensive, and they were like, yeah, that's offensive, you know, you can't wear that. And they asked a bunch of Mexicans, and Mexicans are like, that's cool, that's fine, fuck it. Now, he could have picked and chosen who he put in his video, but like all the Mexicans I know don't give a shit about anything like that. It's for fun, you know? And, you know, whatever. Like, I don't agree with a lot of dumb shit about cultural appropriation. I mean, there's a couple areas where I could try and think them up where I might care. Like, if a company mass produces the designs of indigenous people, is that bad? Well, if they're not trademarked or copyrighted, you know, maybe indigenous groups, they want to protect their designs, maybe they should, as a group, as a collective, form a company, a non-profit or something, and say, we own this design. This is an artwork we created. You know, hi guys. You nice dogs? Not very. Be nice. I don't know, I gotta think about all that shit, because, you know, I appreciate the concern about a cultural appropriation thing, but I think most of it's absolute bullshit. I think it in and of itself is racist, you know. Never heard about any fucking case of white people supposedly being culturally appropriated from. I think it's the glorification of victimization, that you must be the victim, and therefore other people are victimizing you, and you get something for free, like sympathy or anything else. I gotta go, bye.